Christy.
Hi. So today we're talking about trust.
Trust. That is a really, really good topic.
Yeah, I think that trust comes in all different areas of our life. All day we're faced with, do we trust? Do we not trust? Do we go forward this? Do we not go for this?
It's sort of like you have to have trust in your life. And some people have a harder time trusting, and sometimes people have an easier time trusting. But trust is something that we do on a daily basis. It's not something you can really get away with not doing.
And it's hard because it's not concrete. It's not tangible.
Right. Yeah, it's a little bit esoteric of like, what does trust mean? How do I have it? How do I know who to trust? Like, where do I trust versus where do I have certainty?
Exactly. And I think that trust kind of lives in the space between certainty and not knowing.
Yes.
And that's a hard place to be in.
Yeah. And with trust, there's always going to be an element of like faith and like blind faith where you don't really know. You can have more certainty, but even in everything that you're going to do, there's always going to be an element of trust. And so you want to reduce the factors of needing to like not know as much as possible. But like 99% can be known, but there's always going to be that 1% that you're just going to have to step in the water and see what happens.
Yeah. And I think trust is more like scary, I guess, when it's like with people that we haven't had experiences with or new situations, because if there's something that you've already trusted someone so many times, you know that you can rely on them again, right? So you use a really good tailor to make dresses for you all the times. You know, at this point, 5 years later, you trust that they'll do a good job, versus if you're trying with a new tailor, you'd be really nervous. How's my dress going to come out? Is it going to be ready on time? Are they going to lose it? So I think like with experiences, trust becomes more certainty even than trust.
I think like that's a really good like answer to the question of how do we trust? Like I think, you know, mistrust is estimating that people aren't going to do what they or you, right? So mistrust can be with yourself and it can be with others. And it's estimating that people aren't going to do what they're supposed to do or what you need them to do for you or for yourself. Like estimating that you cannot take care of yourself or that you cannot be in charge of yourself or to do what you need to do within yourself. Like, so there's no trust in that aspect. And so like that's really the flip side of what trust is. But I think like if we can shine a little bit of light on this, because I think like where we are now, just in time of days, like mistrust feels like it's just all around us.
I don't trust anything anymore. Yeah. Like as a country as a whole, we stopped trusting our government. We stopped trusting the science, you know, since COVID.
Right.
We stopped trusting each other. So then that leads automatically to us stop trusting ourselves. I mean, like I have definitely found over the past few years that I'm having a harder and harder time trusting my instincts and making decisions. And I feel myself suffering from decision fatigue and all these things that I think are coming as a result of just really living in times of uncertainty and like not trusting our government as a whole.
Yeah, I think that definitely like plays in. Like there's sort of like this ability we have to like think for ourselves, but we can't always think for ourselves because in order to function, we need to trust. We can't do everything, right? Yeah. Part of like our day-to-day routine requires trust. Like we can't not trust the police. Right. You need to know that there's somebody there.
I mean, not nobody, but you just touched on a really hot topic. I mean, like a lot of people don't trust the police now.
Right. A lot of them don't. Like they don't trust that they're going to show up. They don't trust that they're going to do anything. Like I know, like, you know, in certain neighborhoods, like people don't even call the police when there's burglaries because they know they're not going to do anything about it.
I mean, I personally had a lot of money stolen once from my car, and nothing happened from that. You don't know that story?
No.
Oh, I'll tell you all the details later. But yeah, a lot of things, a lot of stuff stolen from my car. Okay, I might have left my car unlocked, but regardless, a lot of really important things and nothing. I mean, the police called me down to their office, showed me a picture of all my stolen goods, and yay, that was it.
Yeah.
So my trust in the police have definitely gone down.
Right. And I think like, you know, growing up, like we're taught like trust. Right. And then like, you know, if you have a problem, like call the police or call the firefighter, right? They're going to save you. But then like as you get older, like now, especially in the political climate, like who can we trust?
Right.
And I think that that's very like, it's petrifying and it's
really
scary. Because we all need to know that we can lean and rely on things that we don't have the time or the ability to do for ourselves. But if they're not following through, like that can leave us in a really unsettled state.
Yeah. So as a society as a whole, we're very unsettled right now.
And you know, not just in the police area, like I think this comes up with like any authority figure. You know, who can we trust in politics? Like who can we trust, you know, to take charge?
I'm looking at our community, people are asking themselves these questions that they maybe didn't ask in the past of like, who can we trust as Rabbanim?
Yep. Who can we trust as teachers? Who can we trust as mentors? Who can we trust to be dealing with the chinuch of our children?
I mean, growing up, I was always taught like kind of like trust the teachers. And I don't know if this is like changing as a whole or this is just changing internally, but like not necessarily do we just trust teachers.
Right.
Like we still have to question, who are they? Just because somebody has that position doesn't make them trustworthy. And maybe this is very controversial what I'm saying right now, but I really strongly believe in it.
Yeah.
Just because somebody's a teacher, just because somebody's a rabbi, that is not enough just because they have that title to be a trustworthy person. And I think that for a while that was, and now it's being questioned, or at least for me it's being questioned. And then you have to know other people who dealt with them. Like, how do they deal? Are they compassionate? Are they empathetic? Or whatever facts you need, like we said before, for different things, you need different people, right?
Right.
So whatever a teacher is needed, or whatever any of these authority figures is needed, do they have those qualities? The title itself isn't enough. Just like a doctor, just because someone has a title as a doctor, that's not good enough. They need to be.
They need to earn it, right? Trust
Exactly.
is something that's earned. Like, it's not just given. Trust is something that the person needs to give on their own, right? Like, I guess you can't force trust.
Right. Just by having a title.
Just by having a title.
I'm a policeman, trust me. I'm a doctor, trust me. I'm a Rav, trust me. Doesn't work anymore.
No, it doesn't. It used to work.
It used to work.
It
Until
doesn't
the trust
work
was
anymore.
Broken.
Right.
Over
and over again.
And that's why our society is crumbling right now, because after years and years of experience of having the trust broken by all these authority figures, we realize that it's just not enough.
And I think like what we mean by trust broken is that the reliability was broken, right? There wasn't like, there's no confidence in the reliability that it's going to show up in the way that we need it to show up. And I think that's, on the one hand, like, it's a sad reality, but it's making me think of children. Like, as a child, you need to trust your parents. You cannot function in the world without them. And so like, there's like a child like needs to do things in order to think that their parent is trustworthy, even if they're not, because they can't function. They can't do things on their own. But as they become teenagers and they start become a little bit more self-sufficient, the trust aspect of their parents is a little bit less because they can think for themselves. And I think as adults, though, eventually you start to realize that I could think on my own and I trust myself a lot more than I used to. So therefore, I don't need to trust as much anymore. Yes, I still need to trust a little bit, but not so much. And I wonder sometimes if people are walking around still in that child state of saying, I want to completely trust because I want to be.
But I think we're even taught that way, that we're supposed to do that. Like, there is an aspect, or at least, again, talking to myself, at least I feel like I was taught an aspect to, I'm supposed to stay in that child way. And you phrasing it like that is so clear. Like, no. Doesn't mean you shouldn't trust people in authority. It just means you have to now think of it in the adult mind, not in the child mind, like, I need this authority figure and therefore I need to trust them, but more in asking, wait, is this person safe for me? Is this a trustworthy figure in the way that I need them? Are they going to show up? Are they not going to betray my trust? The other way around. And the fact is, we need to think of it as adults, not as a child anymore. And that means we have more logic and it's more thought out, and we might ask more questions.
And I think for that, you need to have a lot of self-trust. You need to trust that you can either get the resources that you need, or that you're smart enough to know the answers to certain things, or that you know yourself enough to make the right decisions, right? Because if there's no self-trust, you need to trust others. Right. You can't trust yourself if there's nothing there to trust. And self-trust is something that I think is really stems in self-esteem, self-confidence, self-knowledge, and also experiences where you did do the right thing or you did do something good for yourself and then you got a good outcome.
I remember I was working once with a client who was having a hard time trusting herself. And I started giving like little experiences through the day where you can build your trust. I'm like, such as, when you're in the store and you can't decide, should you get a pizza or should you get a salad? I was like, make that decision, see what it's like, instead of spending hours kind of going back and forth and back and forth. That's what she was getting in that cycle of doing. And it was like, no, just make that decision quickly and swiftly and then see what happens and see how you feel.
I think the way to gain self-trust and, to add on to what you're saying is you trust yourself in the small decisions.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you can trust yourself of which brand of ice cream should I buy, then you're going to have an easier time deciding on the bigger things. And so also when you get good results from buying the right brand of ice cream, it builds up your confidence in, I know that I can do the right thing. And even if I don't do the right thing, I trust that I can fix the outcomes afterwards. So even if I mess up,
you about yourself, like, why did you, was that decision made too fast and you need more time, or now you know which brand of ice cream you like? Yeah.
Exactly. And so self-trust, like there's some people like who have really, really hard times making decisions, like when it comes to choosing a career, like trusting, like, am I gonna like this? Am I gonna be happy with this? But there's some people who have even lower levels of trust in themselves of, how should I set the table?
Right.
Like, is this perfect enough? And I think that comes from like even either a childhood or experiences where someone continuously doubted them. Somebody continuously questioned them of, why did you do this? Or why did you do that? Or constant criticism or critique about the actions that they did, where they start to say like, maybe I don't know how to make the right decisions. Maybe I don't know how to do things right. And therefore, I always need to ask somebody else, like, what do you think about this dress? Should I wear this dress? Should I not wear this dress? Like, what do you think about my hair? Is it nice? Is it not nice? But if you have someone constantly in your life saying like, oh, why are you wearing that?
Right.
Or why'd you do that? Or why are you going there? And that actually breaks the self-trust that is so needed in order to function as an adult. And I think like sometimes parents or siblings, or even through bullying, this occurs for
Right.
people, is that their trust in themselves, just like it gets etched at and etched at and etched at, and the person is just like not surviving because they can't make decisions on their own.
Right.
And that self-trust is so important.
Yeah. And it's something that could be rebuilt. It takes time, and effort, and kind of just by remaking decisions and rechecking if those are good decisions.
Yeah. And so like, back to what we were saying before about like trust and authority, like we just want to clarify like that it's important to have trust and authority. But at the same time, you need it to be balanced with trust within yourself.
Right. And I think also kind of what we started off this podcast saying of that trust is not 100% just
Completely letting go.
There is the research and there is the checking and there is the experiences. So even just because somebody is an authority figure, we can give them trust, but we also need to have it backed up by trust in ourselves and the research and the experiences, not just the blind faith, 100%.
Right. I once like heard someone say, it was like such a good quote, because like it was like a debate, and obviously one of the person was like more knowledgeable on the topic than the other. And the one who didn't have as much information, they said like, I know you're wrong, but I don't have enough information to tell you that you're wrong, but I know that you're wrong.
Right.
I just need to do more research, so I'm not going to like give in.
Right. Like you might sound like the better debater, but
exactly,
I don't have all the knowledge. But
and I think like that's somebody who can say like, I trust myself. Like I trust myself to know that right now I can go get more information. I don't have it at this moment, but I'm also not going to just give in because you have an element of authority right now, and you know more information. So that way you're gonna like get the winning aspect of it, because I know that there's something wrong here and I need to go figure it out. But I'm not just going to give you that win. And so like that, I think like is such a good example of like self-trust in terms of saying like, I can handle my environment, even if it's in a situation where right now I don't know it, but down the line I can trust myself.
Yeah, that is really good. It reminds you like to trust that gut instinct when it's screaming out sometimes.
Right. Yeah. And with self-trust, I think like also with people like trusting that they can be successful, trusting that they can succeed at life, trusting that they will have those to help them.
Right.
Those are all things that like on the one hand, like trusting your environment, but also trusting within yourself that you have the capacity to do good things.
Yeah.
Like so many people with low self-esteem like will feel like, I don't trust that I can be good at anything.
Right.
And that's like really, it's sad.
Right. And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy also.
Yeah. And so like here we see how self-trust is such a crucial element to succeeding at life, is because if you don't trust it within yourself, how far will you get?
Right.
Like you're constantly putting yourself down, or you're constantly indecisive, right? Self-trust is such an important component, because that's going to come into your relationships too and affect your relationships.
I think it might be one of the leading like prerequisites to have a successful relationship, to have a successful job, to successfully parent, succeed in school, whatever it is trusting your ability to be able to do so.
Yeah. And so like I imagine like there might be people listening in and being like, well, hey, I don't trust myself, or I'm constantly doubting myself, or I don't have self-esteem, or I don't believe in myself. Like, what can I do to start believing that I can trust, that I know what to do, or to have more self-trust?
Right. I think sometimes people don't even know that the trust is the missing piece in their self-confidence. They know something's wrong. They know that they don't feel good about themselves and they're having a hard time making decisions, and they may not realize that it's the fact that they don't trust themselves. And that's something, that we talked about before, of how to build your own trust, of like trying little experiences and realizing that you can do the small things good. But first you need to know that trust is something that you need to work on. Yeah. Trust within yourself.
Exactly. And so like when you can identify that that's the core of what's going on, you can then go and, like we had said earlier, is make those small decisions. But first you need to recognize that the reason that there is a low self-esteem, or the realize you feel so uneased, is because there is no self-trust. And it's almost like, right? That's what it is. Like you've just identified it.
Exactly. And I think that sometimes if you realize like a lot of in relationships also, you might not realize that the trust is, you don't trust the other person in the way that you need them. You might trust them in a different way, so you don't even realize that trust is the issue.
Yeah. And there are some times where like people find themselves forced to trust
Right.
Where they can't get out of it. Like, let's say a divorced family, right? So one partner might have to trust the other one that they're going to take care of the child.
Right.
And they might not feel like they're qualified for it, or they might not feel they're capable, but they're forced to say that this child is in another home. I don't know what's going to go on there, but I have to trust that they're going to be okay and that I can only do whatever I can in my own home to make sure that they're okay here.
Right.
And that, I think, sometimes is petrifying.
Yeah, that can be really scary.
Yeah. And so mistrust, like what comes up for me is mistrust can be based on two things. I think that there's one is that the feeling that the person doesn't know you enough to personally help you.
Right.
And then the second piece is that they're not capable of fulfilling you, right? So they might know you, but they might not be capable of fulfilling your need. They don't have the skill, they don't have the talent in order to give it to you. But then the third piece is that they might have the skill, they might have the talent, they might know you, but they might not be reliable.
Right.
And they might not be consistent. And so I think those three factors, if we break it down, like those three things really contribute to the mistrust. And, just to give an example, within that, like let's say my problem is that I need to figure out which career to go into. So I might want to go to my spouse to help me figure that out. So either I might feel like, they don't know me in a business sense.
Right.
Like they don't know that side of me personally to really help me get that. But the second piece is that they might, yes, know me, but maybe they don't know anything about business.
Right.
Maybe they don't know anything about the areas of business that I will go into. So then I don't trust that they have the skill in order to understand what I should go into. Maybe they're not skilled in career coaching. Maybe they can't guide me in that way. But I think the third piece is that if they have those first two pieces, but if they're not reliable, if they can't sit down with me and talk to me about it, or if they say, oh, sure, why don't we speak tonight, but then tonight gets busy, or if we have a 5-minute conversation and then we have no follow-up, I can't trust that I'm going to have that person to rely on to guide me through it because they're not reliable.
This is really reminding me of us taking it back to like mistrust within oneself for a second.
Mm-hmm.
So with internal family systems, with IFS, with working with yourself, you need to start connecting to all the different parts of yourself. And one thing that I just remember was really strong that I learned is that if you start connecting with a part, but then you leave, let's say in therapy, but then you never touch base with it again, that part's going to have mistrust for you. So just to be a little bit more clear for people that don't understand IFS, very briefly and not at all expansive, right? So we all have different parts of ourselves, right? The part of us that feels scared, the part of us that, is the businesswoman, the part of us that's the gymnast, the part of us that is the child part of us, the monster part of us, right? We all have different parts. And let's say you decide to tackle the anxiety part of yourself and you're working through it in therapy. If then you leave it and you don't get back to it, it's now not going to trust you to take care of it again. And I think that might be a little bit what's going on when we mistrust with ourselves, because kind of what you said about that reliability, right? So if you have that 5-minute conversation with an outside person or even internally and you don't touch base again, you're teaching them that you're not actually being there for them and you're not actually reliable.
This makes me think about like post-COVID, like when everybody was working remote and then they had that big like transfer back into the office. So many people didn't trust that they knew how to be in an office.
Right.
Like I remember myself, like when I moved back into my office also, I was like, wait, like maybe I don't know what it feels like to be in front of a person anymore.
Right.
Like, do I trust myself to be okay in a social scene again? And so like, I think like when we don't have something for a very long time, we sort of forget what it's like and then we don't trust ourselves to succeed at it again. It's almost like you need continuous contact with that thing or with that person or with whatever it is in order to keep the trust strong.
Right.
Yeah. And that's just something like to keep in mind. And I think like also another thing is that like empathy makes people trust more.
Right.
Like, so empathetic encounters, like when you feel like somebody really understands you and is with you, that really brings about a certain level of trust because you feel like they get me, they're validating me, they're with me, they're focused. Like also like those that like make better eye contact, like have better trusting relationships because like you feel like the person is focused, you feel like you have their attention, you feel like they get it and they've reflected it back to you.
Now
right?
I'm giving you a very strong eye contact.
I really feel a lot of trust towards you. But
it doesn't mean that someone's trustworthy, right? So just because somebody's empathetic and just because someone's giving eye contact, so it may seem trustworthy.
Right.
But is it actually trustworthy?
Right. So that's where like the nonverbals like add to the trust, but they don't, like,
But is
it's
it
not the
real?
full thing, right? So that's with everything that we're saying today. Like, all these little factors contribute towards trust, but not one alone is a self-standing contributor
Right.
towards trust. So it's like, if I only trust you based on the fact that you're looking at me, that's not enough.
Right. Exactly.
Right? But it needs to be the fact that we have a history together, that we have experience together, that you've pulled through in many which ways, that I know that you have skills in that area, that you're also giving me the right nonverbal messages, right? You're responsive, you're empathetic, you're validating, you're looking at me, you're giving me the time of day, you're focused, right? All of those things are contributing to trust, but I'm not just using one as an indicator of, okay, great, SD, like, I trust you because of one selected item.
Exactly. So that's really important to know that it's a contribution of many different factors, not just one factor.
Exactly. And, I think that, like, back to the element of, like, self-trust, just if we can, like, weave in a little bit of mental health into that, I think that those that are struggling with even minor mental health conditions find it excruciatingly hard to trust themselves.
Yeah, and I think we're all in situations where we can relate to that. If a lot's going on in our life, if we're triggered, if we're overwhelmed, it just can become situations where we just can't trust ourselves in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have the clarity of the mind to do so. And, with people suffering from chemical dependencies, a famous quote that goes around is like, your best thinking got you here.
Mm-hmm.
So they can't really trust themselves either.
Exactly. And that's, like, really petrifying. Like, I know so many people who will say, like, I can't trust that my mind won't go and ruminate about a thought. Or I can't trust that when I wake up, I'm not going to be anxious. Or I can't trust that, like, I'm not going to be angry. And, like, feeling of, like, out of control with your emotions, like, to not trust that you can feel calm, or not trust that you can regulate, or to not trust that you can even pull through when you're feeling in a certain state, like, that can be really scary.
Yeah. And I think that, for people who are struggling with this, there is an element of that you have to rely on maybe other people to help you to reality check, someone who's more black and white thinking, to reality check, is my thought, am I being too extreme right now, or is this warranted? It could be a therapist, it could be a friend. Well, then you have to trust who you're trusting to help you trust yourself. But, there are people that can help you, through that period when it's hard to trust yourself.
Yeah, exactly. But, I think, like, also, like, over time, like, with mental health conditions, or even with, like, not mental health conditions, or, like, extreme emotions, what happens is that we're all patterned to a certain extent. Like, most things are not so erratic. Like, we're not, like, so up and down. Like, we're up and down in a pattern. Okay. And so, like, over time, as you get to know your anxiety, get to know your depression, get to know, like, somebody who has mania, get to know your triggers, get to know when jealousy comes up for you, get to know when rage comes up, right? Get to know when anger comes up, get to know when your sadness comes up. The more you can pattern it, the more at least you feel like, I can trust that this has happened before, and I trust that this is the cycle. So even if you're in the cycle doesn't completely take over, because you can trust yourself that I know what to do when those things happen. So maybe I don't know when it's going to happen. I can't trust that it's not going to be happening every day, every second day, third day, fourth day, once a year. But at least I can trust that when it does happen, I know what skills to use, or I know how to at least accept it or to let it pass.
Right.
So today we spoke a lot about trust, and I think there is so much more. Like, we only touched upon a few topics, and I wish we would have, like, gone deeper into each, and maybe we can, like, come up with new episodes that, like, go into each question specifically, and where we can actually bring up more examples, because today was, like, more theoretical.
Yeah. So I guess if anyone has any questions about trust, how to trust yourself or trust other people, like, send them in so then we can explore that. But also, just to wrap up a little bit what we talked about today, we talked about how we trust ourselves and how we trust other people.
Yeah, how we can build trust within ourselves, and how self-trust is really a prerequisite to a successful life.